While plenty of castle sets were produced by LEGO in the late 90s and early 2000s, this time period isn't often held in high regard. Between LEGO's decision to add in a fantasy element out of seemingly nowhere in the mid-90s, or the rather ugly figures, models, and builds featured in both Knights Kingdom 1 and 2, it's safe to say that while fans did receive castle sets, they weren't as special as the ones LEGO was producing in the 80s and early 90s. And while LEGO was experimenting with new factions, new worlds, and even new ways of presenting characters, these properties are not on the same level as Classic Castle. However, in 2007, LEGO began releasing sets under a brand new castle theme, conveniently called Castle, which wrapped up in 2009. This time period, referred to as the Fantasy Era, is considered to be one of the best eras in LEGO Castle history. While this theme did see LEGO re-enter a fantasy world, it was done with care. Between an amazing lineup of sets, fantastic factions, and a wonderful job done at world building, it's not wrong to call this theme the savior of the LEGO Castle property. For starters, one of the best parts of the Fantasy Era was the factions, as there were 4 present in this theme, with the Crown Knights, skeletons, dwarves, and trolls. The Fantasy Era brought back the beauty of Classic Castle, with a solid lineup of factions that fans could enjoy. Each faction was also properly represented in the sets, with the inclusion of 2 factions in almost every single set, which allowed fans the opportunity to create their own battle scenes with ease. Additionally, something special about this theme is the inclusion of a base for each and every faction. Between the Trolls' Mountain Fortress, the Dwarves' Mine, the Skeleton Tower, and the King's Castle, every faction had a central base. These bases, along with the unique vehicles and other fantastic locations LEGO produced for this theme, gave each faction their own identity, their own purpose. Considering the fact that this theme was only on shelves between 2007 and 2009, it makes this attention to detail for each and every faction even more impressive. That being said though, the Fantasy Era alone did not just result in fantastic sets, as it also created a whole new generation of LEGO Castle fans. The wide assortment of minifigures that ranged from cool looking skeletons to troll big figs, along with the action element included in almost every set, made this a theme perfect for play. The plethora of cool locations, amazing vehicles, dragons, and other elements also benefited the play experience of this line. It was a revolutionary theme, but it was done right. Yes, LEGO went out of their comfort zone with this theme by diving headfirst into a fantasy world, but the attention to detail at every level made this a hit. And I think in many ways, the success of this theme and LEGO's realization that they could successfully bring something new to Castle greatly benefited the property, especially with the theme that followed, that being Kingdoms. Even though Kingdoms saw LEGO return to a traditional medieval theme with 2 factions, the fantastic architecture and inclusion of village sets saw LEGO really raise the bar for what was possible with a medieval style theme. I think in many ways, you can cite the 2009 Medieval Village set as the inspiration for Kingdoms creating sets outside of the castle gates. Sadly, most of these improvements were lost with 2013's Castle, and with us fans not receiving a single castle theme these past 10 years, it's easy to forget how much of an impact the Fantasy Era had on the castle property. While I would do anything to get another castle theme on shelves, retro remakes like the Lion Knight's Castle and Forestmen's Hideout were produced to not only satisfy the demand from AFOLs that grew up with Classic Castle, but for those of us that experienced the Fantasy Era, or Kingdoms. Perhaps the Fantasy Era saved LEGO Castle twice. Not only by setting it back on the right track with the amazing world created in 2007, but by creating another generation of LEGO Castle fans, ones that are now eager to support the property in whatever way they can.